Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. My name's Ivan. Thanks for joining the webinar today. I can see lots of people joining at the moment as we speak, so we're going to start the webinar in a couple of minutes, just give enough time for people to join the meeting and then we'll kick off. Hopefully you can all see me and also see my co-host Duncan. We're on video conference as well as slides coming through. Nice little wave there. We have some chat available and people to support you if you're having sound issues or video issues. So just while we're waiting to join, just a sound check. If you can't hear me, you can't hear me now. But if you do have any problems through the webinar, use the group chat and we'll have someone there to support you. If you're having sound issues, you can't see me or the video's choppy, just let someone know and that will be fed back to us. We're going to give it another 30 seconds or so. We've got quite a lot of people on already. So another minute or so for late joiners and then we'll get kick off. Hi to those joining. I see a few people joining the last few seconds. We're just waiting for a few last minute attendees and then we're going to start in about 30 seconds or so. Right, I think we'll get going. I can see the attendance list has stabilised. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Ivan. I'm one of the co-founders of Applaud. I'm your host for today. Also joined by the other co-founder of Applaud, Duncan. Duncan's online as well. Do you want to say hi, Duncan? He's saying hi with a wave, but you'll hear from him later. So the topic for today is about onboarding. We're going to be talking about onboarding in general, good onboarding practices, but with a particular slant about how we can make a great onboarding experience when people aren't actually allowed to come into the office anymore. How do you create a good virtual onboarding experience? This is the agenda for today. We're going to talk about how to put a program together. You won't be surprised to hear it takes a bit of effort to do this well. There's going to be lots of sort of educational material and takeaways in this presentation. So we're going to give you some templates and ideas about how you plan to join us first day, first week, first 3 months, but also some ideas of things you can do before they actually start around surveys and questions to answer. We're going to be talking about what sort of tools you can use for communication when people are working remotely away from the office, and then we're going to end up just revisiting the business case about this. Why does it matter apart from it feels like good practice, but what's the dollar value of making a good onboarding experience? Is there savings you can make or other business benefits that are there? And then we're going to finish up today's session. It's going to be about 45 minutes long. We're going to be talking about how your HR systems can support your virtual onboarding process and onboarding in general. And then Duncan is going to have his time in the spotlight. He's going to do a 10-minute demo or so on some onboarding functionality that we've developed in our Applaud system. Just some etiquette before we get going, and I'll be turning the video off in a second just to keep the bandwidth requirements down. Everybody is on mute apart from us two. So if you have dogs in the background or kids, I'm sure you're working from home, don't worry about it, we won't hear you. If you do have questions, thanks to the people that asked questions before the meeting, a little mail went out. We've got those. We'll try our best to address those. There is time for questions at the end. Just ask them in the question panel on your GoToWebinar session, and we'll address those. The slides will be circulated automatically. They will go out tomorrow. There's a lot of material that we're going to be getting through. I'm not going to be talking to all of it, so there's a lot of value in those slides. You will get those. They'll be sent automatically in email tomorrow for you to download. And video, if you've got colleagues that couldn't attend today but wanted to see what we talked through, the video will be made available at the end of the week. Right, I'm going to turn my video off. It's good to say hi to you all, and then we'll get going on some of the content. So onboarding today is different to where it was sort of 2 or 3 months ago. I think there's a lot in the news, of course, about the terrible layoffs and challenges that lots of businesses are happening, but equally there are businesses that are hiring as we speak. We at Applaud have hired a number of people and they've joined our company during lockdown. It's a strange experience. So onboarding has changed, recruitment has changed, but employee expectations haven't. If you mess up the onboarding experience for new starters, now it's going to cause you problems, just as it would have done three months ago or so. Interesting stats on screen there. I was really interested to see this statistic from Zappos, the shoe retailer in the States, obviously bought by Amazon about 10 years ago, but not a big company. Not a big company. About 1,500 people still today work at that company, and yet the CEO estimated that bad hires cost them an enormous sum of money. It's not necessarily all down to onboarding, of course. You can have a bad hire that is just a bad hire for other reasons, but that all feeds into it. I was interested in sort of working out what the cost of a bad hire is, and we would say that someone that onboards quickly and leaves soon is probably classed as a bad hire if they're a sort of a permanent annual salary person. A good stat from the US Department of Labor is about 30% of the first year salary is the cost of someone that is not an optimum hire in your business. And then some very eye-watering statistics from HCI on how many new hires, good and bad, leave their job because of a poor onboarding experience that for various reasons, maybe the job wasn't what they expected, or maybe they just weren't introduced very well, but people can leave much faster than maybe 10 or 20 years ago. I like numbers. I like to see pound values when we're talking about all this stuff to make it a little bit more tangible. We did a survey around some customers we work with and some other customers that we don't. We got a variety of bits of feedback. I was interested in finding out what's the sort of scale of this and what could be the potential cost to businesses. We asked how many annual salaried workers left each organisation last calendar year, so in 2019, so not inflated by the COVID pandemic at the moment, and left with less than 1 year's of service. So you'd expect someone to come in to hopefully work more than a year with the organisation, and excluded all the casual workers, all the hourly paid workers. So annual salaried workers leaving last year with less than 1 year's service. I've had this with Applaud. I would definitely tell you that someone that you've recruited into your company, you're excited about working with you, leaving within a year would be classed as a bad hire. They might not be a bad person or a bad candidate, but leaving that soon, they haven't given you the value you want. We then added up all the salaries across. You can see there's some high earners in the professional services company that we talked to. This is obviously very sensitive data. We're not going to give the company names away or sizes or anything like that, but an enormous amount of salaries. And if you then tail it back to the statistics from the US, the Department of Labor about what that cost is, we're seeing some significant costs incurred to businesses around people leaving too early. Those costs, recruitment costs, it costs a lot to recruit people, agency fees, managers' time, HR's time, advertising, all those sorts of things. When someone leaves too early, you have to pay quite a lot of money to hire someone else and replace them. So I'm going to give you some homework. And be interested to go back to your organisations. I can see people from a variety of organisations, large and small, online today. If you don't have this information to hand, why don't you go and ask your HR reporting team if they can get it for you. We helped some of the people we work with. We got this information out in about an hour or so. Can you find out how many people left your organisation in the last 12 months, sorry, with less than 12 months service? How much were they earning and what was the cost of your organisation? You can challenge these figures, of course, like anything, but it gives you a starting point and it gives you an idea of the scale of the costs incurred when people leave your business too early. Interesting quote from one of my favourite people on the circuit, Jason Aberbrook. We mentioned him before. He's a great HR advisory expert out in the States, as you can tell from some of the language on screen. But he makes the point that we spend millions on recruiting systems, on recruiting practices, finding the best candidates, finding the best talent. We spend millions on learning systems and talent systems that once they're in, we kind of coach and make sure that we retain people. But actually, this onboarding, this crucial piece of someone starting in the first day, sometimes is overlooked. And if you get that initial experience right, it's a time in someone's career with your company that you can't get back. It'll always stay with them. So how do you go about making sure your new employees have the best experience possible? How can you make sure they've got the great emotions that you associate with a positive start to a career in your company? And how do you adapt that process in this world where people aren't going into the office and are going to be sitting at home on their laptops or PCs without that interaction day to day with the people in the office they normally have? This whole piece that we're doing today actually stemmed from some internal experience we had. As I mentioned before, we've hired and onboarding a number of candidates into our company during lockdown. It's a bit strange, isn't it? You normally kind of get excited about seeing people, going out for lunch with them. You don't have that anymore. One of our managers in the business took it upon themselves to put together a really cool little guide for the new starter that was coming in. Really put a lot of thought into mapping out the first day, the first month, and the experience that person would have. Really put a lot of effort into making sure they're connected around the team. And we thought, wow, this is really great. This is really good experience, not just for onboarding in general, but how you can improve and make someone excited joining the company when they're just stuck at home, basically. So that expanded out into a deeper piece. We thought this would be really high value for a lot of our customers and other people. We produced a free guide. This is available on our website. I know a few of you will have already downloaded this already, but if you haven't, it's a really nice little 30-page guide. A lot of the content from today is taken from this guide. And I'd really recommend, if you're interested in this topic, take this. There's a lot of takeaway materials, lots of templates and surveys that you can pore over and choose what to use. As I say, it's a free guide. It's available on our website. It'll also be circulated after this presentation tomorrow in email. So let's just talk through really quickly about how to put a program together, and you won't be surprised here, it takes a lot of planning. We often spend a lot of time and intensity around circle 6, the employee's first day. And we've all had a first day, haven't we? You rock up to the office, you meet your manager, you're taken around the office, you meet your peers, the people in your team, you're taken for a coffee or tea, maybe taken for lunch if you're lucky and your manager's got generous. Probably stuck in front of a laptop or PC, asked to look around the internet, asked to read the handbook and so on. Very intense, a lot goes on. Energy might dip after the first week, almost certainly dips after the first month if you haven't got some structure in place. And after 3 months, that person really isn't often thought about anymore. So putting together a good onboarding program is really moving away from that first day experience and just stopping. Obviously, the first day experience is very important, but thinking past that. What sort of things do we want to cover off in that first week, the first month, and so on? And then also looking at preboarding. So we term preboarding as what you can do with a candidate before they've actually started work with you. That gap between that offer coming along with the contract and shaking hands all the way through to that first day. And if you're onboarding really senior people, like senior managers or partners or things like that, this could be a really long time. We've had people that have been in this position for 2 or 3 months when they're coming into senior positions. There's so much you can do with this time. And actually the pre-boarding experience doesn't really change too much, whether you're in the COVID-19 situation or not, because they're remote from your office at this point. And so, use this time to do get to know you activities, pass out surveys, really start planning the IT infrastructure that person needs, particularly important in these days when people are working at home. Get the communication with emails out, meet them if they're open to it and your policy allows it. So when they start on their first day, they're not a stranger, basically. That's what you're trying to achieve. Day one, everyone knows something about this person coming in and they know something about you. It's a 4-step plan to putting a program together. High communication during these days is really important to the candidate before they start and afterwards. What are they going to see during this pre-boarding phase? What's going to happen on their day one when they start at the office? What can they expect? Ask them questions about themselves and so on. Technology is super important. We've been tripped up ourselves on this. Make sure that it's not about just getting access to systems anymore. They've got to have the equipment in place. Can you get the laptop delivered to them in time? Do they need things like a mouse? Do they need a monitor? delivered. These are things that you might not have to consider when people are coming into your offices and everything's in place. Personally speaking, if I start a new job, I wouldn't want a monitor delivered to me because I've got a nice one I like. So, you know, people will have personal choices. You can't assume there's just a pack that you can send out and that'll be okay. Share the schedule, really, really important. If you put in the work into putting a schedule together, share it with the candidate before they start, day one, and afterwards as well. That's all transparency, so people know what they're coming into. They can feel valued and know you thought about their experience when they start. And then once we get past the sort of initial first day, 1 week experience, it's all about feedback. It's making sure things are going, you know, fine. Is there anything you've forgotten? Are there any worries? And, you know, keeping that up for a number of weeks and months after they've started. Let's talk a bit about the pre-boarding phase, and again, some sort of takeaways here I'm going to go through really fast. This is from the guide that we put together. Get to know survey templates. We've got a template for this that you can download and reuse, but some of the things that are useful to extract from the candidate so you know them a little bit better when they start. You know, what are they all about? Do they like coffee or tea? And what do they do at the weekend? That sort of thing. Can you get to know them and make it a bit more of a personal interaction? Can they fill that out online or just have a chat with them? Technical setup, I'm sure now we're sort of 2 months into lockdown for a lot of you, maybe you've got this sorted out with your IT team, but like I said before, you know, as an employer, especially in the UK, you're responsible for making sure they have a suitable home working environment. It's not necessarily enough just to give them a laptop and get on with it. If they've got particular requirements around having a monitor or mouse, even desk and chair, you know, we've got junior employees in our company that don't have that sort of home working arrangement. These are the things that you as an employer not just should do, but are obliged to do as well. But ask them, you know, ask the people before they start if they've got any special needs or equipment needs. Welcome packs are kind of a bit of a stretch target. Maybe some of you are working in conditions where costs are very controlled. Applaud, we certainly are, but equally we've actually had some savings through Corona. You know, the travel costs are going right down. So can you redeploy some of those costs to do nice things like a welcome pack? Some of these things don't cost a lot. You know, if I was to travel into London, that would pay for a couple of welcome packs for a couple of new starters. I'm not traveling into London anymore, so can we redeploy some of that expense money into these sorts of initiatives? Craft welcome email templates, again, an example that you can download and use. This might seem a bit impersonal to some of you, especially if you're in smaller organizations, but in larger organizations, if we're talking sort of in the thousands of employees and up, it's really important you kind of structure a standard email template that your managers can tailor and personalize just to make sure everything is put in place and they know what to send out, the right links are in line and so on. Onboarding is all about checklists a lot of the time. There's just so much to get through. There's so many touch points for a new starter, email accounts, laptops, access to systems, access to getting your payroll details in and all that sort of thing. So start putting together checklists, split them up into different topics, like making sure the communications are all set up. Start getting things into people's calendars before they start. Particularly important if you're onboarding senior people. Because we're doing virtual onboarding now, you don't have this kind of thing where people go into the office and they say, well, the department's head free for 5 minutes, you just want to pop in and see him. You know, that ad hoc way of doing meet and greets in the office isn't going to happen anymore. So you have to work hard to get people's calendars arranged and get slots in with particularly senior people. So if you've got senior managers coming in, they're going to be wanting to do virtual meetups with other senior managers whose calendars are probably going to be really, really busy. So that particularly needs a lot of time and planning before that person starts. And then making sure the comms have gone out and so on. First week, again, some sort of samples. Most people's first day agenda looks pretty similar, I would think, to something like this. But of course, we don't have the introductory coffee break or the introductory lunch where you can have a bit more personal time. But you can still do the things like virtual lunches, you know, knock up a Zoom session or something like that, get your sandwich and coffee and talk about something that isn't work. That's the way people are doing things these days. But just have a structure together that is presented to the person before they start, so they know they're coming in, they know what's going to happen day one. It kind of takes a bit of pressure away from it. And again, you know, a new starter is going to be stuck at home on their laptop. is all going to be about how you structure that first day and making them feel secure that you've actually thought about them really deeply and making them feel welcome. First week, good template here to start thinking about, maybe not in terms of what hours of the day, mapping that out, but in terms of themes per day. You know, what happens on the second day, third day, about the end of the week. You make sure you build in things like feedback sessions, debriefs, informal stuff like lunches with a buddy or mentor if you have a scheme like that, drinks with the team at the end of the week, introductions with senior managers and department heads. Make sure you have some informal discussions and meetups with other people in the team, as well as just the day-to-day stuff about what they're going to be doing as part of their job. All takes a bit more effort, takes a bit more organisation. You've got to get people's calendars in place, got to make sure you have good video conferencing and so on, but it can be done. And if you present something like this on someone's first day, they're definitely going to feel more welcome, that you've thought about them, and they feel a bit more welcome into the company. Here's a little sample. This is an example of someone that joined our team in our marketing department. They're probably having a chuckle to themselves now, because I think they're probably watching this. Names removed and everything else, but just an example of actually a real life first week template. And this was presented, day one, laying out the touch points, a lot obviously with the manager, but with other teams and other teams that the person will be working with, other peers and other senior people around the organisation, ending the week with a nice little drink with other colleagues that the person will be working with. Then month one, what's the expectations for the first month at work? Maybe this is something you wouldn't necessarily do if you're in the office. You'd have more informal chats and meetups, but setting expectations of the first month of work is quite useful. And this isn't to be at the end of month one, it's to be used on day one. This is what we expect to get through in your first month of work. And if you forget things or things drop by, that's okay, but at least you've got some sort of task list in place that you can touch back with that person at the end of the month to make sure things are on track. Once we get past the first week and month feedback, really, again from the template, the download document, we have some ideas of checking questions. So rather than telling your managers, go and check in with that person on month 3 or whatever, you tend to have these kind of valueless conversations where someone says, "Are you doing okay?" "Yeah, I'm doing okay." "Any problems?" "No, I'm all right." And you kind of don't really get much out of those conversations sometimes. So useful in our role of HR practitioners to start to put together some kind of open questions, leading questions to engage a conversation like this one, especially in this era of us working remotely. Do you feel out of the loop on? So it's not a negative question, but it's a nice one to open up, and someone might say, everything's good, but I don't know, I'm not quite sure on the policy around login expenses, or booking my vacation, or I don't know, I don't seem to be having much communication with this particular team. Those sorts of leading questions can get a much more engaging kind of conversation that lets the manager act on it. A few tips for managers here. Again, I'm not going to go through all these, but there's a few kind of nice things here. One thing I've noticed is you've got to make a lot of effort to kind of recreate those water cooler moments, those things that aren't about work, but just sort of getting to know each other and sort of chatting around the events of the week or the day. You're talking about what you just watched on Netflix or whatever. If you haven't got anyone naturally in your team that will do that and do that social aspect of getting people together over conference calls, you might have to do it yourself as a manager and put a lot more effort into that, because that's the only way you're going to get that sort of informal team interaction going on in these days. And then probably this one's more for larger corporations out there. Think about building into some surveys and feedback tools that you might have, so you can actually get that feedback loop in, pass that into the different teams that own IT or payroll or HR, and you can start to work on the things that maybe are getting the red marks rather than the green marks, work into a feedback loop, and just improve on iterative cycle. But about tools for communication, we had a few questions around submitted before we had the webinar about how we get materials to people in this day of virtual working. We all know Zoom, of course. I'm sure most of you know WhatsApp as well. And there's a few sort of sample tools that we've got information about that you might be interested in. All of these have free trials that you can use for things like communication. Slack and WhatsApp are good for instant messaging and so on. We all know Zoom these days, don't we? but these two may be unfamiliar to you. When it comes to project management, Trello and Asana are two similar tools that allow you for very easy to use project management around tasks lists and putting materials up and checking tasks off. So they give you it's kind of a cool tool for if you're a manager and you want to track what your particular new starter has to do, and you want to upload things like documents and spreadsheets and stuff against each particular task. These are worth looking at. So we had a particular question around how you get materials to people for virtual meetings and other aspects of working life. Other things like Slack and WhatsApp and other calendar tools also allow you to use attachments, of course, if you've got a bit of material that's particular for one particular meeting. But if you're looking for tools that organize other materials for general day-to-day work and tasks, these two are worth looking at. We've got a couple of slides here. If you're not familiar with these, just around the different options you have. Again, that's a takeaway. These aren't our tools. We're not going to get any commission off them. They're just we thought they might be useful for you to see. We've used Trello in the past. It's quite neat. And as I say, both have free options. Let's just wrap up to get to the end of this piece around sort of the business case, revisiting that. I think we know recruitment's hard now, but I think we'll probably see virtual recruitment is going to take hold as a more natural way of doing things in the future. But virtual onboarding isn't impossible. I think we've done it with Applaud. We've tried anyway to make an effort at this. And my personal feeling is that if you've got people joining at these difficult times, they're going to realise that it's not going to be an ideal situation, and they're going to have some sympathy. And I think if you put the effort in to really show that you've thought about this and you're going to take care of these people when they start, it's almost like you're doubling down. You're doubling up on your onboarding experience, because I think that'll be really appreciated by people starting in these times. But even post-COVID, the way that we're all working at the moment with much more remote working, this is going to be a talent that enterprises that understand how to get people collaborating and meeting without being in the office as much are the ones that are going to be really successful going forward. Onboarding process, a last little statistic. This one is from Glassdoor. Quite a big stat saying that if you can improve your onboarding processes or have strong onboarding processes, your retention can improve by 82%. That's a very, very high figure. You might challenge that, I don't know, but that's what Glassdoor came up with. If we circle back to where we started with some of those numbers from some of the sample customers we surveyed, what does that look like? If we could, a bit of a stretch target, of course, but if you could improve retention on these people that prematurely left the organization by 82%, what does that look like in terms of annual savings? Huge numbers, easily numbers that support any business case, whether it's for software purchases or just general new practices within HR, or even new staff to support it. Even if this 82 is ambitious and you halved it, or even took it from a quarter, you're still talking about 7-figure savings in terms of what a stronger onboarding process can bring to your business. So just an extra question on your homework. You apply that statistic to your organization. If you go and find these stats out, can you work out what your business case might look like? So now we're just going to cross into how your HR systems might support onboarding. And particularly with larger organizations out there, you've probably got a multitude of HR systems out there, lots of IT systems, of course. And actually, when you start a new company, that's when your interaction with HR might be high. There's lots that you as an individual have to do within your first few days. Obviously, your personal details goes in, your bank details to get paid. You've probably got some induction training to do. You might need to go into the performance system and see what goals are being set. I don't know, that might not be week one, but that's certainly early on. You've probably got to look at your benefits, select your benefits, maybe think about booking your vacation that you've already got planned and you want to get into the system. And that's before you get into things like IT access and ordering business cards and making sure your laptops and you've got the right access to different systems and so on. Lots of companies use the intranet to try to get all this together, and the intranet can often just collapse collapse into this farm of links that people have to collect and click, find it difficult to navigate and work out where to go to do particular things. Particularly confusing if you're a new starter and you're not used to that intranet. This is a quite pronounced problem. You know, the time that your touch point with HR is at its highest, you as an employee have got the least experience with the company systems. So how do you solve that problem? There's a new breed of HR tech coming along, which are experience layers, which are basically a layer of technology that sits across multiple systems, in this case HR systems. So rather than people like new starters having to interact with an intranet and then multiple different systems that they click through different links, they go to one place and everything's collected together. So you have a nice simple dashboard. You don't have that confusing navigation flow to different systems around the place. This is what Applaud does, as well as put out free guides. We make a cloud solution that layers across your existing HR services, primarily targeted as employees and managers, but also can be rolled out to people that haven't yet started your organization, and we'll see this in the demonstration from Duncan in a second. So it's a cloud-based platform, sits across your multiple systems. So if you've got different systems, like you may have an on-premise HR and payroll system, maybe a cloud-based recruitment system, the Applaud application sits across both, all of those, and makes it easy to find out what you need to do, ask for help, gives access to knowledge, task lists, and so on. I want to make clear that Applaud isn't just an onboarding solution. That's obviously what we're going to demonstrate today, but for those of you on the call that aren't familiar with Applaud, we have it's an HRware platform that allows you to give value to all sorts of different processes, whether it's looking at an org chart or making the transfer process easier to navigate for managers. But what we're going to be focusing on today is something is actually new. If you're an Applaud customer, this is brand new. If you're not an Applaud customer, this is part of our portfolio, is looking at onboarding capability and pre-boarding, building up task lists to track onboarding tasks and so on. So an example of what you're going to kind of see, Applaud is a platform where you can build your own pages or use our templates. So things like an onboarding page will be something like, hi, welcome to the company, things like welcome videos, access to company handbooks, telling those new starters where they need to go to do particular tasks, but also do things like fill out forms to order business cards, request access, go and get your vacation into the system, select benefits, all that sort of stuff as well. So that's the end of my piece. I'm going to take a nice drink and hand over to Duncan now, who's going to do a quick live demonstration. So let's do a handover. Duncan, you on?
I am, thank you, Ivan.
I think I've transferred rights over to you. Over to you, I can see your screen.
Okay. So I think Ivan's spoken about the cost of a bad hire and how quickly staff can leave if they have a bad experience. And what we've tried to do is really flip that on its head, so that we try and really obsess over the end-to-end experience of pre-boarders right the way through to employees. And I think, you know, whether you're looking at whatever technology or whatever tooling you're looking at using for your onboarding, virtual onboarding processes, you can take away some of the principles that we've applied here in terms of being able to deliver that. So I just want to check my screen's coming through. Okay, Ivan, are you using my phone here?
It's all good. I can see your phone. Hi there, welcome to Applaud at the top.
Thank you. Good. So this is an example of where it starts. I'm putting myself in the shoes of a pre-boarder who has accepted an offer, but is not due to start for a few weeks. And it typically starts with a nice welcome email like this. And this is the same kind of practice that we also apply for our customer experience as well, really using some of those great customer experiences and moments and trying to apply that to the employee journey. And I'm just going to hit start success. And what that's going to do is that's going to take me into a pre-boarding place where I can get information and start some of my activities. And I logged into this earlier, But here I'm actually connected with my personal email address. So I've got a very restricted set of access right now, not the same level of access as an employee, but nevertheless, I've got access to see a bunch of things. So first of all, I can see where I am in the onboarding process. So I'm currently at the pre-arrival stage. I've done 1 of 4 tasks. I've got 3 tasks remaining to do as part of pre-arrival. We'll take a look at those. Take a look at those in a moment. And I've also got first day, first week, and first 3 months. So I can sort of see how my onboarding journey is going to progress and get an idea of what's to come ahead. Now, this particular one is 4 steps. Some are 5, some are 6, some are different depending on the audience, whatever. And I think it's fair to say that the sort of activities that are involved in a pre-boarding journey might vary, depending on whether it's depending on the vertical, depending on whether it's retail or telecoms or oil and gas, or maybe within one organization you might have different personas of employees who have different journeys. And so if you haven't looked at persona mapping or journey mapping, it's really worth taking a look at that. We find it an incredibly valuable tool that you can use to sort of map out your key personas within your organization, which really helps you craft brilliant onboarding experiences for each of those different personas. So here's my 3 tasks: choose hardware and set preferences. And we just tried to make this as simple as possible. So I'm a Mac user, I like power, I don't need a work phone, I would like a monitor and a mouse, and a little welcome treat. Yay, I drink coffee and I like to eat fresh fruit. Now, obviously, we tried to balance some of the transactional stuff that has to be done with some of the nicer stuff that you can do as part of a virtual onboarding. So obviously not all of us are going to be in a position of being able to send nice gifts and treats. It might be something you do for your executive community or more senior managers or a certain pay grade, but being able to do a little extra something to just make that initial onboarding experience better is fantastic. And here, because I'm working at home, it's really important that I get the opportunity to specify the things that I need to make my home office productive and any special needs that I might have. And off the back of that, if I was to submit those preferences, off the back of that is some incredibly complicated workflows. Things going off to different departments, to different people playing different roles, connecting to multiple different systems, provisioning hardware, provisioning access control. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes there. And the beauty really is about trying to simplify that down as much as possible so that I'm completely oblivious of all of that complexity going on in the background. That's not my problem. I just get a really nice, simple experience that's enjoyable and simple to use. There is also going to be an element of form filling, of course, but we just tried to make that as simple as possible by pre-populating information we already know. So, I've got things like my name and marital status from my application process, maybe different data capture for different groups of people, but just trying to limit the amount of information that needs to be entered so that I can just fill in the gaps rather than having to type the same thing over and over again. And of course, document signing, whether it's the employment contract, in this case, it's an employee handbook. We've built some integration with DocuSign that allows us to very easily digitally sign documents without zero touch, without any input from others. Just makes it really easy for me to just tick off and get all of those documents signed, forms completed, and preferences set. Incidentally, further down here, we've got some of the extra stuff that we would recommend you include: a video from the CEO, a welcome video. We've got sort of questions and answers where you see common questions that other pre-boarders have asked. There'll be the opportunity for me to ask another question, and these may be answered by the HR community or by other managers or whoever you like. But the option to sort of build out a list of questions rather than a sort of an FAQ, if you like, that's been put together. This is a very organic way of answering a whole multitude of questions, and it could be quite specific to the role that I perform. So, I live just outside London. What is the best train connection to get into London? if I'm into an office, or what is the best local coffee shop near me to be able to have a coffee whilst working productively. And we've also included the employee handbook on here as well. I think it's great if you can include the employee handbook as part of the pre-boarding journey. I think it's a great thing to do. It shows an excellent degree of transparency and just really helps them take out a lot of the risk and worry and questions that employees have before they start, which in turn improves the experience they have when they join. It reduces the number of no-shows and it helps them be productive more quickly. So that's an example of what a pre-boarding process could look like. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to flip that over and imagine we fast forwarded in time by a few months. A moment. Okay. That's not going to play. So I'm now connected as the same employee, but I'm now into my first 3 months, and I still get access to the same onboarding portal. I'm just going to go to that now and see where I am in the process, and that will give me a status of where I'm at. So I'm seeing the same information as I was seeing before, but here I can see where I'm at. I'm at the first 3 months. I've done 2 of 4 tasks of my first 3 months of progress. I'm still saying much of the same content. I've still got tasks that I need to perform. So completing a survey, completing my profile for profile completeness. But I've got access to a little bit more information now that I'm a proper employee, logged in with my single sign-on access. I've got access to resources such as acronym busters, or looking up who my colleagues are, or getting help with some of my new equipment. Looking at some of the articles, so what is a flexible working policy, for example. But also things like the questions and employee handbook, I've still got access to right there. So really, I mean, if you see them side by side, it's really very hard to distinguish between the two. And that's really, for me, is what defines a frictionless experience from pre-boarding to post-boarding, where you just get sort of a seamless experience. And it's possible to take that further as well if you incorporate the same kind of thing into your candidate experience, into your job application and your careers site. You can potentially get a seamless experience right from the first candidate touch, first point of engaging with your organization, all the way through to being an employee and even an off-boarder and into alumni. So I think that's one thing I try and take away is how frictionless can you make it and how simple can you make it. And then finally, I'm just going to flip over to put myself in the shoes of a manager now. So in this example here, I am also a manager, and I have a number of my own reports coming in. I can see that Ariana is a new joiner, for example, and I see the option to track the progress of my new joiners. And I think if you can, it's great to give a manager as much help as possible with this. It's not really about bombarding the manager with tasks. They're busy people, they've got a lot to do, but of course there are tasks they need to do. It's really about giving them tools that actually give the manager value back. So here I can see the status of all of my new joiners, whether they've started yet or not, and how far through they are, and all of the onboarding tasks that I need to do across all of my new joiners. And it isn't just things like ordering software or ordering hardware or approving certain things. It's facilitating some of those organic things as well, like setting up an introduction with a buddy, getting that first week schedule put in place, sending out a really nice welcome email to the team, maybe arranging a big video conference on the first morning where the whole team are on, where you give the new joiner a warm welcome. So trying to facilitate some of those important discussions and making sure the manager remembers to check in at the end of the first week, at the end of the first month, at the end of the first 3 months, and perform various tasks at various different stages. It just really helps the manager. The manager really loves just being reminded to perform some of those tasks to create that great experience. And of course, it helps employees have a fantastic onboarding experience, makes them more productive, and ultimately improves retention by up to 82%. So I hope that gives you a little flavour of this component of Applaud. But I think whether you're looking at Applaud or something else, I hope that you've given you something that you can take away and apply to your existing onboarding process as you've got it. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to pass it back to Ivan, who will wrap up and take us forward.
Thank you, Duncan. You can wipe the sweat away from your brow now. Just check that screen sharing's come back. I should be sharing my screen. You should be able to hear me, Duncan. Can you just do a sound check?
Yep, sound is good.
Right. So that's the end of the session. We've got some useful links on the screen now. We have been putting together a few guides over the last few weeks. We've got a COVID-19 guide for HR directors. There's another load of takeaways in that about thinking about how to manage your workforce during these difficult times. And there's also similarly for managers who are thinking about how to manage remote teams. There's another toolkit there. So both of those are on our website, or you can take the links in the presentation there and take that away. Now we're going to Q&A. I can see a couple that have come through already, which is great. And the usual thing here is that Duncan and I will, I tend to be the compere and ask Duncan the questions and put him on the spot. If there's any easy ones, I'll answer them, of course. There were a few ones that came in before the session. I think we're going to address those. I really appreciate the people that asked questions before. We tried to tailor a few slides to address those. We had questions about providing materials to people in advance of meetings, what's considerations to senior level roles and partner level roles, things to do within the first week, first 90 days. Again, if you go to our download guide, there's really great templates in there. There's more in there than I was able to show today. There's some nice templates that you can download and use to distribute around. And there's sort of general questions about kind of how do you recreate the water cooler moment. The very common thing is effort and organisation, and making sure you really think about putting the time into people's calendars to have fun over Zoom or whatever you're using. Really, it's got to be along those lines. Other questions that have come through, I've got a few to start off. So let me pick through these. So Duncan, you ready?
Yep.
I'll put your spot. So surveys, Duncan. There's a question about employee surveys, sort of feedback, pulse feedback, all that sort of thing. So we put a bit up in the slides around the feedback loop and quick surveys. The question is whether Applaud has capability to do something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we have some pulse survey stuff that we use that we have, which is what that does. If we apply that to onboarding, is at various points in your journey, it will pop up ad hoc pulse questions. So, for example, how's your pre-boarding experience been just before you join, or how is your first day, or how was your first week, etc. And sort of does pulse surveys at particular key points of the journey, and then sort of maps those on a chart, so you can sort of measure the sentiment of workforce experience on a broader scale. So what does the experience look like in the first week for a broader audience, or for this particular sector of our organization, and what does it look like month one? Or maybe we can spot a trend whereby the experience is poorly rated at week 3, for example, and then we can look into why that might be and try and refine the journey to try and improve that over time. There's that aspect of it. And we also have pulse survey capability for just sort of more ad hoc questions. So, how are you feeling about work today, or whatever it might be. How would you rate your experience with using this particular HR service, or what did you think of our service desk when you use that today? So I think we tend to do a lot of pulse survey stuff. We're not a full-on surveying system where you get sort of stacks of SurveyMonkey questions and big annual employee surveys. It's not really what we're into, but we do often integrate the sort of larger surveying tools that ask big survey questions less often into the Applaud platform, which can sort of facilitate sending out those surveys via email or getting people to complete them within the app, to just sort of boost up the completeness ratios of those surveys. So I hope that helps. I don't know if you've got anything you wanted to add, Ivan.
No, that's a very, very comprehensive answer. I've got a few more to get through, so I'm going to crack on if that's okay.
Okay.
A question from a customer, I'm guessing is a global customer. We have different processes and tasks for different regions and countries. Can you have different dashboards for different countries? I think I'm sort of paraphrasing a bit there. I'm guessing sort of translation will be coming into that as well, although it's not asked in the question specifically, but I've heard that one before. Are you able to talk to that point, Duncan?
Yeah, so there's 2 points there. There's the first point about sort of personalizing the dashboards and experience for different audiences, and then the second point about translation. So on the point about personalization, yeah, this catches a lot of people out, and the reason for that is so the onboarding experience is often huge link farms on the intranet, where you might have a new joiner section perhaps, but it's just bombarded with all sorts of information that applies to all these different types of roles, and it's really bewildering to try and work out what applies to you, what's relevant, what do I need to do. And yet on the flip side of that, trying to personalize something too extensively just results in a big overhead of trying to of all this maintainability. So yeah, what we do is we apply. We tend to try and globalize things as much as we can, and then apply personalization to hide or show different components depending on, whether you're in retail or whether you're office based, or whether you're home working based, or whether you're a manager or not, whether you're in a particular country, and just try and hide or show various different components and just tweak it slightly rather than fundamentally rebuilding for every different audience. If you've done persona mapping, then personalizing at the persona level is a really great way to go. That tends to get good results as well. And so yeah, we use our platform to hide or show different parts in terms of the personalization. That really helps deliver a very personalized experience to employees and managers, and give them the stuff that they need to see. On the translation, yeah. So yeah, our platform is primarily targeted for enterprise organizations that have sort of thousands of employees, and so translation with any enterprise platform is kind of a must.
Yeah, good.
I don't know if there's anything you want to add?
A specific system question. No, I've got loads of questions. I'm probably not going to get to all of them, so apologies to the people who've asked them. I'm just picking ones out that I think might be relevant. So one customer says, we have Oracle Cloud HCM. Can your pre-boarders enter their personal details, bank details, and other information and interface into our core HR system? So I think, I don't know whether you need to address Oracle Cloud HCM particularly, Duncan, or just generally sort of interfacing that sort of information into the system of record of choice.
Yeah, well, I mean, of all of the processes and all of the services in HR, when we look at our templates, onboarding is one of the more complicated ones. It kind of spans departments typically. I mean, obviously IT is involved with hardware provisioning and software provisioning. HR is obviously involved, but it spans lots of different departments within HR, and lots of other potential departments as well. When you think about business cards and access badges and parking permits, it's a really quite a complicated process, and when you layer in process variations by country or by different audiences, it becomes quite a complicated process. There tends to be lots of different technologies involved. Oracle Cloud HCM might be your core HR system, for example, but I'm fairly sure it isn't going to sort of maintain things like sort of hardware and software requirements and identities and things like that. It's also probably not going to be the source of your knowledge. Your knowledge system. That might be your intranet or some other system. It's probably also not going to be your document storage for storing things like employee contracts securely and other things. So there's lots of different technologies involved, and I think Applaud is an experience layer that's designed to connect to other things. And I think it's really important to be able to have something that can take away some of the heavy lifting of connecting all of those things together, so that you haven't got loads and loads of re-entry of data into lots of different places, lots of offline spreadsheets, lots of different people involved in potentially making that process fragmented and overcomplicated. So yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, the answer is yes. It can chuck in personal data into Oracle Cloud HCM if that's your core HR system of record.
So a similar question related, it's probably got a similar answer. We have an IT service desk and manage onboarding tasks via tickets logged into ServiceNow. Can Applaud make that interaction easier? I'm guessing that from experience, this customer probably has things like account creation and stuff like that for onboard, all done in tickets in ServiceNow or something else. So it's probably a similar question, Duncan, and a similar answer, I guess.
Yeah. So what's the question, Ivan? Can you sort of feed cases into your case management tool as part of onboarding to kick off those steps?
Yes. Excuse me. Yes. And coffee. Yeah. Yes. That's a yes.
Yeah. So I mean, in the example, I filled out a sort of a hardware and preferences form where I sort of put in a combination of hardware and software and other needs, so that that might kick off that might feed a single case in your case management tool. But it also might potentially trigger off lots of different things. It might create multiple cases, one to provision the hardware, one to provision the software, one to provision the access control, perhaps a communication to someone else to, I don't know, send me a pack of coffee or whatever it might be. So yeah, I think you need, at the heart of something like this, you do need something that can bring those complex workflows together. Okay.
There's a few other questions. I think I'm going to have to wrap up here, Duncan. We've expended our hour, so I think we'll answer all the other questions over email, if that's okay to the people that have asked them. Sorry if you missed out. Thank you. I think that's the end of the webinar. I hope you guys got a lot out of it. It's nice for you to spare the time to join us today. As I mentioned, the slides will be circulated tomorrow by email to all of you. So don't worry about mailing us in for those, and also a recording will be put on of this webinar that you can share with your colleagues if you would like to. So that's the end of the session. You can see Duncan's going to wave goodbye, so I should do the same. Thanks, have a great day, and wherever you are in the world, and thanks for joining us again. Thanks, bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.